Story 1. Some people just drain your energy. They are loud, negative, or always focused on themselves. They are good in small doses, but too much gets exhausting. Story 2. People who are very outgoing, energetic, and always need to be doing things. It is nice to be pulled along for a bit, but it becomes overwhelming and exhausting if I am hanging out with them for hours. Story 3. People with overbearing personalities or loud people. There is nothing inherently wrong with them. They can be a bit much for a prolonged period when it is not a relaxed social situation. Story 4. I have little patience for people who talk excessively about all their aches and pains and list every medication they are taking. Story 5. Hypocrisy. If you believe something, then you should hold yourself to that standard. Otherwise, you are not being honest. Story 6. Playful banter can be fun sometimes, especially when you know it is unserious. However, if it becomes excessive, it can feel like constant criticism of everything you do or say. It is exhausting. Story 7. Complainers. I volunteer at a shelter 2 hours a week, and by the time I am done, I am more fatigued from having to listen to a woman I volunteer with complain the whole time than from cleaning after shelter dogs. Story 8. One-upper. I work with one. She has a story to match anyone's at any time. I am about to say murdered someone just to see what she comes up with. Story 9. People who are always selling, trying to make you believe that they are something they are not or living a life that they really are not. Story 10. Lack of situational awareness or emotional situational awareness. I had someone once brag about a very expensive gift they had been given and hated but made sure to show off, while I had just said I was not sure how I was going to pay my electric bill that month. Story 11. As an introvert, I find it draining and rude when people who love to talk do not pick up on social cues that they need to stop talking. I used to have a coworker who would try to talk to me every day for almost an hour, and I could not tell you what it was about. He went in circles and just liked to hear himself talk. Please leave me alone. Story 12. People who talk over everyone, constantly need attention, or act like they know everything, drain me so fast. Story 13. Selfishness makes me sick. Some people have so little regard for others. If you do not like other people that much, just be alone. Story 14. They always feel the need to one-up you. They make everything a competition. They criticize those whom they feel are less than. They want empathy when they are going through a hard time, but when others face difficulties and they are doing well, they belittle them. Story 15. People who are so militantly optimistic that they shame me for expressing my nihilism sometimes. Just let me have it for 2 seconds. You are still a net positive. However, if you mention grindset one more time, I will end my life forcefully and make you watch. Story 16. People who do not know when to be quiet and those who think others want to hear them sing all the time. Just be quiet. Learn how to be comfortable in silent company. Story 17. Publicly acting out and standing their ground, but behind closed doors, they are fearful and submissive. Story 18. People who refuse to talk about anything but themselves, only getting a few words out before they are interrupted so the other person can relate the story or topic back to an experience they have had. Story 19. People who are indecisive. There is nothing inherently wrong with that, but spending too much time with someone like that drives me crazy. Story 20. Always takes things the wrong way, has to control everything, is always right. Never correct her because actually you are wrong, uses the harshest tone but then does not understand why you just got offended and insists that you are overreacting. But she has her moments when she is really fun to be around. Gotta love sisters. Story 21. I live on a few acres and have found that I do not like people. They can be difficult, and I do not understand how they succeed in life. Story 22. When people actively choose to ignore parts of something because they are biased, it just blows my mind when people prefer to be wrong or partially wrong and know it. Story 23. Extremely quiet. I love you all so much, but after about half an hour of me talking, I would appreciate it if you could chime in with anything. Story 24. I work with around 30 people in a small office and some are just not very intelligent. Story 25. People who frequently switch between topics make it difficult to follow their conversation. It becomes tiring to use extra mental effort to understand the unclear connections they make when moving from one topic to another. Story 26. People who offer their opinion as gospel. I say I do not like the film Hereditary, and they decide to tell me why it is precisely the greatest film ever and that opinions are subjective. Yes, that is why I offered an opinion. I said I did not like it. I did not say it was bad, you dolt. Story 27. I am just honest and very blunt. Sometimes that is needed on rare occasions for serious circumstances. Most of the time, you are just a bully. Story 28. Too positive, like the kind that does not allow room for anything else. Optimism is admirable, but there is nothing healthy about trying to force positivity or disallowing yourself or others the space to feel the full spectrum of human emotions. We have them all for a reason, and they all have their purpose toward our best interest, even if they feel terrible in the moment. Fake people. I have no patience for it. Arrogance. I greatly value and admire confidence, and I also find it extremely attractive, but when it crosses from I know my worth into I am worth more than you are, that is an instant deal breaker for me. In a similar vein, selfishness. It is good to take care of yourself and see to your own needs, but that does not mean you have to be selfish. People who think being all logic and no emotion makes them superior or more intelligent. We evolved to be capable of both for a reason, and we are at our worst when we allow either one to be in the driver's seat all the time while the other is ignored. We are at our best when we learn to balance the two and utilize each appropriately for a given situation. Bigotry, even in small doses, is unacceptable. Zero tolerance. Story 29. Always talking and not knowing when to call it a day or night. It is okay to go home and be by yourself. Story 30. Negative people who do nothing but praise themselves, displace aggression onto others, and hold on to unjustified resentments. Story 31. People who are at maximum volume all the time, people who always have something wrong and want to tell you about it constantly, people who talk at me and not with me. Exhausting. I have a coworker who likes to come by, and anytime she speaks, there is always drama going on in her life. There is always something wrong. Sheesh. Story 32. Just really high energy, or people who cannot be in your presence without talking. My social battery does not last too long, but they just drain it faster. I enjoy my time with them, though. Story 33. When people want all the credit and attention for themselves, or when they ask about you but are not genuinely interested. Story 34. My kid's mom is very vain and really negative. She is attractive and has a great body, which is what drew me to her. Sometimes we connect, and I think, this is the girl I fell in love with. But when she starts talking about negative things, it changes. She is extremely racist. Her mother was dated by a black man. She has siblings who are half white and half black, and she is also. I am white, but when she talks about black people, she uses offensive language and describes them as animals, which is incredibly cruel. That's why I left her. Some people are just soul-draining. Story 35. One-upmanship. Most of the time, people do not even believe them, but even if it were all true, it gets really old. Story 36. People who only talk about themselves, their drama, or their personal problems. No, Carol, I do not want to hear what your gynecologist thinks you have. Story 37. The one-uppers, no matter what you have accomplished, they claim they did it better than anyone else. No matter what illness you have, they have something much worse. It is more than just competitiveness. It is like a compulsion. Story 38. People who have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder but do not need to have it. Karen, you are in a drug-induced mania just to try to stop snacking. Admit it and stop mowing the lawn at 1 a.m. You are not acting right. Story 39. Overly argumentative. I have a family friend, and it can be hard to talk to her because she takes the smallest thing and makes it an argument. You can even agree with her, and she tries to argue about it, like what? Story 40. Gossip. I can only take it in small doses. Once I see that there is nothing inside your brain, no hobbies, interests, or passions outside other people's lives, I get intellectually bored and stop paying attention. Story 41. Conspiracy theorists who are against vaccines and lean toward sovereign citizen beliefs. It is somewhat amusing to listen to their circular logic. We all need a good laugh sometimes, but only in moderation. Story 42. Type of bossy people. I am able to get through a few exchanges, but any more than 2 to 3 in a day and I am wiped. Just one bad interaction can leave me needing a break. Story 43. The ones who turn every conversation to being about how they cannot get a romantic partner and they are depressed or spiteful. It gets old quickly and they refuse to take any advice. They are usually pretty cool people in moments when you can steer the conversation away from their obsession, but it never lasts. Story 44. I do not know if I can identify the traits by name, but all of the components Russell Brand is composed of. Story 45. People who make jokes about others' appearances all the time. People who joke around by putting you down constantly. Story 46. People who talk at you keep talking even if all you make are acknowledgement noises here and there while not looking them in the eye. Story 47. People who always turn every conversation back to themselves are fun in small doses but exhausting as a full-time soundtrack. Story 48. People who claim they miss you and can't wait to see you to catch up. You try to make plans with them, and it's hours of negotiation every day about the time and place, which I have to look up and research because they put in no effort. Once that is settled, the day comes, and I end up driving farther to see them because, for some unknown reason, they can't drive and meet me halfway. Yet, I see on their social media that they literally drive by my house 4 times a year, if not more. I arrive on time like a functional adult, and shockingly, they are over half an hour late, while I had to drive an hour and a half to a restaurant 30 minutes from their house on surface streets. When they do arrive, we go through the standard small talk. Then there is silence. Suddenly, they forget how to engage. They don't ask me anything about myself, and I find myself trying to extract a conversation like pulling teeth. When they finally talk, it's about their children who, plot twist, are full-grown adults in their late 30s. But you would never know because they talk about them as if they are still in 7th grade. Them. Becky just got her first job volunteering at an animal hospital walking dogs. Me. So she's not getting paid? Them. No, but it'll look great on her resume. In my head, she's 36. This resume should have existed 3 careers ago. Becky is not dealing with any developmental or mental health issues. She just lives at home, rent-free, with her mom along with her equally grown 39-year-old sister and 32-year-old brother, who spend their lives in front of a screen playing games while she pays all the bills. But hey, they missed me so much, right? Story 49. Maybe unpopular opinion, but people with a victim mindset can be difficult. I am a listener and support healing and open conversations. However, some people repeatedly complain about how unfair life has been to them, how bad their parents or spouses are, and how they have been dealt a cruel hand by God. It is fine if this happens occasionally, but when all they talk about is their misery and how they are victims, I feel like telling them to get their act together or seek therapy. Story 50. When someone I do not know very well is overly nice and friendly, I am sure they mean well, but it is subtly unsettling in a way. Story 51. Devil's advocates. No, you are not presenting a different viewpoint or perspective. You are stirring the pot on purpose to make people mad. Story 52. I have a friend who I love, but he has very confrontational energy. He is abrasive and abrupt. He often gets into aggressive interactions with people over small things. I care about him, but I hesitate when he invites me to hang out because I expect something to happen. Story 53. Just people who talk a lot. They are exhausting to me after a while. I think because of that, I have always been more of a quiet person, as I tend not to do things myself that annoy me about others. Story 54. Those who talk too much, those who are negative, those who talk loudly, and those who are not curious about the world they inhabit. Therefore, those with limited knowledge and less interest in acquiring more. Story 55. People who share opinions just to share them and are completely unable to explain or support their reasoning. This mostly applies to negative opinions such as, that movie was bad. It adds nothing to any conversation and only brings down the people who do enjoy it. I am all for differing opinions, but if your sole contribution to a conversation is, it is bad, then spend that energy on something you do enjoy. Story 56. Constant gossiper. I am a fairly reserved person, and people tend to see me as someone they can confide in. Normally, I do not mind. I get to know what is going on yet stay uninvolved. However, every once in a while, there appears a person who loves to gossip without pause. This person is loud, rarely has anything positive to say, is angry at the world, and needs to cut others down. I worked with someone like this, and she was the bane of my existence. I always wondered what she must have been saying about me, and she must have said something about everyone else. I often tried to wear headphones just to block her out. I did not want other coworkers to think I was talking about them as well. It has been a decade since we worked together. Her personality type is the only one I have found that I cannot get along with. The constant gossip is just too much. Story 57. I start a story or comment, but a friend interrupts and tells a one-up story. It never gets back to my turn. It is not a conversation. It is a stage for my friends. Sheesh, why am I even here? Story 58. Negative people. Days are never good. They are never good. Something always sucks. They hate everything everyone else likes. They drain all the joy out of life while you are with them. Story 59. A lot of these issues seem to arise when introverts have to spend much time with extroverts. Although I do know quite a few extrovert-introvert couples that complement each other nicely. I am an expressive introvert, so I get along with both groups. I prefer to be with extroverts publicly but spend time at home and in romantic relationships with introverts. Story 60. People who yell even when they are right next to you. People who interrupt you to talk about themselves before you have finished speaking. People who cannot take accountability for anything. Story 61. The self-described phrase is brutality honestly. You mean you are an asshat. If someone else says they are brutal, they might be okay, but I am too old for rudeness. Story 62. I have a friend who is awkward. She has good intentions and tries to be funny and interesting, but she is not. She irritates me, but I do not want to make her feel bad. Story 63. Die-hard sports fans. Look, I love sports occasionally for a big game or weekend barbecue, but I do not live and breathe football. I cannot sit and watch SportsCenter like older generations watch Fox News. It is just some guys playing a game. Why is there such a lifestyle dedicated to watching that? Story 64. People who need or crave a lot of attention are not my people. I am not the person who is going to give you excessive attention. If I am forced to share space with these people, I try to create an excuse that I am not feeling well so I can leave. Story 65. Complaining about everyone else. I have a couple of friends like this, and I tend to clam up when we get together for the first half hour or 45 minutes. Then, when they run out of complaints, we can start to have a conversation. Related to that, there are people who assume that everything other people do has to do with them somehow. Story 66. People who claim they only look at facts and view things objectively often do not. My friend does this, but whenever you bring up information that counters his point or shows that the situation is not so black and white, suddenly we are talking in rhetoric. It is not possible to be completely objective. We all have our biases. The best any of us can do is try to be objective. Claiming to only look at facts when forming an opinion is the same as saying all my opinions are objectively correct, and if you disagree, you are wrong. Discussions with my friend can be tiring, even for simple topics like football or soccer for friends from the United States. Story 67. People who represent themselves as modest saints. First of all, if you were modest, you would not need to say it. And snobs. Story 68. The person who always has to one-up you when it comes to telling your life stories, good or bad, no matter what you say, they have had it way worse and way better than you could ever imagine. Truly a very draining individual. Story 69. People who talk at you, not to you. I volunteer, and there is one girl who just wants to hear her own voice. I avoid her and do not really react when she speaks. Story 70. Someone who is always in a bad mood or upset about something, even when everything is fine. The type of person who, when everything is going well, starts looking for reasons to be angry or negative. Story 71. In your face, happy extroverts. Like annoyingly excited about everything and everyone. Exhausting after a short time. Story 72. Wannabe sarcastics who cannot figure out the art of it try to make it funny but still do it repeatedly. I just let my eyes roll over and over. I sigh, I grunt, I ignore, and I say, "What do you mean?" If someone has to say, "I'm kidding," repeatedly, they are not on point. Story 73. Super negative all the time. People who are too dramatic or have over-the-top reactions. People who dish it but cannot take it. Annoying. People who will not stop complaining about their situation. Story 74. People who only talk about themselves. I understand. I know how that mentality develops. I have friends who do it, but I reach my limit at about 30 minutes of chatting, and then I have to move on. Story 75. People who are constantly involved in some kind of drama always bring it upon themselves but cannot understand why their life is difficult. These individuals are often the ones who ask for help moving, working on their car, or fixing something around the house but never have anything to offer if you need assistance. Story 76. People I have absolutely nothing in common with. Also, people who have personalities I refer to as beige, just boring, lame, basic people with no hobbies, interests, or passions. Story 77. When they don't stop insisting you change your lifestyle for them in some way, whether it is dieting, going to college, pursuing a certain career path, or religion. I could go on. I hate being told what to do, especially by people who already drain my energy. Story 78. People who talk too much are difficult for me. I prefer balanced conversations. I also do not like people who try too hard to make jokes or force laughter. Some people let those things happen naturally, and those are the kind of people I like. Story 79. Rapid-fire delivery of a large amount of information that you would prefer not to know. They do not tolerate any interruption or change of subject. It always goes back to the barrage of details they want to convey, such as all the disorders their children have, all the medications they are taking, and all the social programs they are trying to access. Story 80. When you are talking to someone and the entire conversation and world revolve around them, people who think they are the best at everything and brag about it, even though it is not true, are liars. People who consistently lie about things. I am not sure if you can tell, but I work with someone who has all of these traits, and every day is literally hell. Story 81. They only talk about themselves and do not seem to care about the person they are talking to. Enough about me. Let us talk about me. Story 82. Living. No, really. I cannot think of anyone other than my children that I can stand for more than an hour. Story 83. When people constantly complain or speak negatively about others behind their backs over small matters and judge them. Story 84. Loud, obnoxious, chews and talks with mouth full of food. Always eats like they have never eaten before. Even though they ate 30 minutes ago. Overtakes every conversation, talks over everyone, tries too hard, laughs too loud at everyone's jokes, especially their own, and cannot see someone else win without saying something like, "I let you win." I am sure there is more, but I guess that is why I do not have many friends. People irritate me, or maybe I irritate them with my pickiness. Story 85. When they are authentic with you, but act completely differently around other people, you do not really know how often they present each version. Story 86. I cannot stand loud, overly talkative people who lack awareness. They do not notice that they have been speaking for hours. They might not even notice you trying to interrupt at this point. They do not realize how their words affect anyone or that it is time to be quiet and go home. There is a total lack of awareness and understanding. Story 87. They interrupt people to make everything about themselves and have no empathy for others. It is as if they are addicted to the dopamine rush of attention. Story 88. Never stop talking, never ask about others, talk about topics no one else cares about, and talk about themselves the entire time. Also, those who are really loud or have bad breath. Story 89. People who keep talking and say nothing. It is just constant running of their mouth and they speak out of boredom or something. My mom does this, and I cannot stand it. It is okay to just be quiet. I worked with a guy like this before, and one day I just could not take the constant chatter and complaining and yelled at him to just be quiet for 5 minutes. Story 90. They talk loudly, interrupt frequently, and are negative and pessimistic. They like to complain about things but do nothing to fix them. Story 91. People who feel the need to outdo me. If I mention that I did something, they immediately respond with, well, I did twice as much. I work with someone who constantly does this, and conversations with him are tiresome. Story 92. Loud people who always need attention. In a group of 5, one person should not take the space of 2 or 3 people. One-uppers. I cannot stand people who need to have a better story than the one I am trying to tell. Just let people share their stories. Dishonest people who make up stories about their lives. It is okay if your life is not interesting. You do not have to lie about it. Cutting people off, not letting them get a word in, or checking out of the conversation when others are trying to share a story. Using their phone, browsing social media, or messaging others while talking to someone. I do not want to be around these types, so when I am always ready to leave. Story 93. People who have to be on the go all the time. There is one man on YouTube who continuously posts videos of his partner running around and acting crazy all the time, and he thinks it is the cutest thing. He says she does it from 5 o'clock in the morning until they go to bed, and I would lose my patience. Story 94. Large ego, talks more than listens, is not interested in learning, lacks empathy, can be annoying due to voice or comments, thinks they know more than you on topics you specialize in, and has an opinion on everything even when misinformed. Story 95. People who never listen to a word you say, and when they do, they snort and immediately point out how wrong you are, what a fool you are, or find some other way to diminish your very being, even if, out of boredom, you repeat word for word what they just said. Story 96. People who only talk about themselves non-stop, boastful users, people who have no manners, loud and obnoxious individuals, and those who put others down. Story 97. I hate people who think they know everything, and in the words of Charlie Murphy, they are habitual one-uppers. Story 98. People who try to force fake positivity when no one else agrees with it. You sound like a motivational seminar. Story 99. Loud and energetic people. I also cannot stick around extremely competitive people. Not everything is a race. Story 100. People with a victim mentality. You can offer as much help and support as possible, but they will find every excuse to blame their circumstances and avoid taking responsibility. Then they act entitled to your help or other people's help because they truly believe they cannot do anything for themselves. Story 101. I used to date a woman whom I genuinely loved as a friend, but we would spend Friday night and all of Saturday together, and by Sunday morning I was desperate to leave. For one thing, she was not as intelligent as she thought she was. She occasionally went off on what she believed were deep philosophical musings that were neither deep nor insightful. When doing that, she tried to use big words whenever possible instead of small words. The intelligence gap between us was an issue, and I think she did this to show off her intelligence so I would think we were more equal. It did not work. It just annoyed me, though I never called her out on it. Additionally, she had a well-developed victim complex. It was understandable. She had been molested as a child, and the scars were real. But understanding its origin does not make me like that trait any less. Those were the 2 traits that were deal breakers for me. It is unfortunate, as she loved me without reservation, and it broke my heart that I could not love her back the same way. Also, the sex was pretty great. Still, I went on to meet and marry my wife, and I would not change that at all. Story 102. People who pretend to listen but have relinquished the floor and are planning to interrupt when you pause. Hate them. Story 103. Compulsive lying. Sadly, I can no longer get any support from that person since he has walked out of my life. It is a shame because, aside from lying about every little thing, he was a good friend. Story 104. I knew a man who could not tell the truth about anything, even if his life depended on it. 90 days was all I could work with him. He caused so much disruption that they moved him to swings and mids. Story 105. One-upping. Somebody could be talking about eating an ice cream cone, and another person will say that they ate an ice cream cone in a hurricane while standing on one foot. Well, we all think that's just wonderful, Kevin. Story 106. Those I like to call the one-uppers. If I say I have a headache, they say they had a brain transplant twice. Story 107. Really extroverted people who want to talk to everyone in public. And I am just there twiddling my thumbs. Story 108. Talk too much, claim to be experts at everything, but have no marketable skill or talent other than answering a phone. Story 109. People who never ask about you, yet when you share, always have a story about how the same thing happened to them. Exhausting. Story 110. People addicted to complaining are problem magnets. Life ebbs and flows in significant ways for all of us. But some people cling to perceived problems, unload their trauma, and dismiss any potential solution or personal responsibility. Story 111. I don't do well around people with flat or generally off affects. Puts me on edge. Phony people, I guess, would be a subtype of that. People with poor situational awareness who cannot read a room. Story 112. People who always feel the need to top a story. People who ask what you think, but when you give your opinion, they say, yeah, but repeatedly, and people who do not know how to end a conversation. Story 113. Narcissists and extroverts. I have a cousin who is both, and after just a few minutes around her, I am out. Story 114. People who explode their rage on you lightning fast, often out of nowhere. No thanks. You enjoy by yourself. Story 115. People who compulsively shift between scratching themselves, picking at their ears, blowing their noses, and twirling their hair. I might feel bad if it is caused by a nervous tic, but it does not mean I can tolerate it for long. Story 116. People who consistently interrupt without regard for what the person interrupted was saying. Story 117. People who like to stir the pot and bring up sensitive topics, often during holidays. My sister does that. I can only enjoy her company in small doses. By small, I mean 0 since I have cut her out of my life for my wife and my mental health. Story 118. When people only talk about themselves and do not ask me any questions, I feel ignored. If I start telling a story about myself, they often appear bored and uninterested. Story 119. Easily frustrated people who have short tempers and start throwing or slamming things. Also, people who are constantly in motion cannot settle and pace. Those who have no voice, like you can see their mouth moving but you cannot hear anything they are saying. Speak up. Story 120. People I know who are two-faced, overly hyper at all times, and those who think they know everything when they do not. I do not mean people who genuinely know what they are talking about, but many who do not and think that they do, which is annoying. Also, people who are not open-minded about anything. Even I can be stubborn about some things, but will warm up to new ideas and other things quickly. Story 121. People who cannot stop moving around. Visit someone's house to relax on the couch, and they are cleaning things, going up and down the stairs, rearranging items, taking things out for supper tomorrow, outside, inside. Please sit down. I am leaving. Story 122. People who complain about everything wrong in their lives and always blame others. Story 123. Condescension, constant negativity, ruining people's dreams, inability to consider different viewpoints, picking on people, making fun of people, and a lack of thoughtfulness. Story 124. Several traits drain me, but here are the main ones. Very loud, always talking about their faith, always negative, over the top about everything, will not have a discussion but will just talk at you. Also, people who are fake, especially fake nice or fake happy. I have also gotten to the point where I do not even care if I agree with you. I do not like discussing politics, especially not in public. Story 125. Sometimes I think it is the sound of their voice or maybe the way they look, but then I finally figured out that for most people I can only take them breathing in small doses. I wish they would really quit and go away. Story 126. Vocal fry. Need to dissect every topic in detail. Opinionated about culture war issues. Somehow never ask you how you are. Always complaining about how tired they are. Always eating sugary snacks and drinking Starbucks. Somehow always broke. Seriously, it is not hard to get yourself together just a little in terms of impact on the people around you. Story 127. I have a serious issue with all the people I know who would do this incredible thing or participate in this community event, but here are a lot of inane, useless, far-fetched reasons they cannot. I call them the I would buts. Story 128. Me. Simply exists. Them. Another half-hearted quip that gets repeated until they think it is funny enough. Story 129. Those who must dominate the conversation and are uninteresting braggarts with no sense of humor. Story 130. Needy. Force a laugh. Touchy. Weight or diet obsessed. Pity party throwers. Cannot sit quietly. Asking questions during movies or shows. Story 131. My sister interrupted me in 2 separate conversations to talk about herself this weekend. She knows nothing about me. I am only a sounding board to her. I am quiet by nature anyway, and you interrupt the 2 times I try to converse? I'm good, sister. See you at the next family function. Story 132. People who constantly complain that they have it worse than you do. I worked with someone who would frequently say, "Just wait until you," and then she would go on explaining why she has it worse than everyone else. My favorite was when she said to a coworker, "Just wait until you have kids." She did not even have kids, but thought she was an expert on parenting because her boyfriend had kids. Story 133. People with a high-pitched, screechy laugh invariably laugh at almost everything. Also, people who have to make every conversation about themselves. Story 134. People who travel extensively. I have traveled too, but I can read the room and bring it up when it is relevant. These people make it their personality and only are quiet while you are talking so they can spew their unoriginal travels that they posted to social media. Story 135. They gossip, manipulate, lie, and complain. I try to avoid them. Life is much easier without the psychic drain. Story 136. Contrarians. It is impossible to have a conversation that does not leave me feeling confused and slightly offended. Story 137. I have a friend whom I have known for ages. I consider him one of my closest friends. Over time, I noticed that I always felt exhausted after hanging out with him for just 1 or 2 hours. I never figured out why until one day recently, a few weeks ago, as we were hanging out, I realized this guy never stopped talking. We could be eating, walking, or doing anything, and he would not stop even for a minute. Story 138. People who are unnecessarily cheerful when it is more appropriate to be serious. For example, when sitting in a meeting at work, my boss often sings her way through the meeting, and it is hard for me to understand her because of how she speaks. Do not get me wrong. I think there is a place for cheerfulness, but when delegating information about my job, I just want to hear the facts I need to know. Please tell me the facts about my job like a news anchor, not a cabaret singer. Story 139. People who are really materialistic. I had an old friend who was like this and would only talk about new expensive gadgets, makeup, or skincare, and it got very tiring. I did not want to spend money on any of these things, so we did not have anything to talk about. Story 140. People who are chronically online have half their vocabulary consisting of niche, internet meme-based language. Story 141. Anxious attachment people exhaust me. I have a male friend who needs to talk to me every day or he thinks our friendship is failing. He is only my friend, and he talks to me more than anyone else in my life. My friend constantly shares updates about his life. When we hang out, there is hardly a silent moment. He is a good person but extremely exhausting for me. When my husband and I are apart, we check in the next day with a quick text. That suits my energy, chill and relaxed. Story 142. Loud people. No offense, but I am not 3 streets away. There is no need to be laughing or talking out loud. Story 143. Boastful people, those who need to be the center of attention, main characters, and experts on everything. Story 144. People who do not actually know you but know the rest of your family. I know a family like this. The mother and son only noticed that I exist since 2022. However, my attitude towards them is extremely hostile due to their behavior towards me over the past 15 years. My parents fully understand my feelings toward that family and have shown some form of hostile behavior towards their entire family over the past year. They have not invited them to the house and have placed an extreme limit on face-to-face interaction. The situation is such that the family has to beg a great deal for my parents to join them at a party and use my brother as a middleman to handle communication. Story 145. Lies that are so exaggerated to make themselves seem better. They claim to be related to royalty and have sued many people in the United Kingdom who upset them. The worst part is that underneath it all, they are actually a nice person. If they stop trying to be someone they are not, they might be more liked. Story 146. Loud talkers. Had a barbecue today and my brother's girlfriend is very loud for no reason. My grandmother refused to leave her room because my brother's loud noises give her headaches. Keep in mind, she stays out in the open when my kids are there. A 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. Story 147. People who over-exaggerate. For example, someone will tell a story about something that happened, and I was actually there to witness it, but they make it seem bigger and better than it really was. It drives me insane. I got to the point where I just say, "That's not how it happened," and let them figure it out. People who think everything is about them and cannot see past their own feelings. People who cannot admit they are wrong, even when given proof. They still find a way to make it seem like they are right. Anyone who tries to get me involved in a multi-level marketing scheme. People who are super intense. Story 148. People who have a low sense of self-awareness disguise insults as jokes and sarcasm. Also, people who have strong neuroticism. Story 149. Too much banter. Every now and then, it is fun to tease each other, but when someone keeps going, it is almost like, okay, you are not joking anymore. There has to be some truth to this now. Story 150. The ones you try to lose in a thrift store so you can think and find again by their talking to themselves. Story 151. Victim mentality. We all go through challenging situations, but when you focus only on how everything is done to you instead of looking at what you can do to improve your circumstances, it becomes difficult. If I am there listening to everything without you taking accountability for your part and doing something, it makes me feel like you are draining my energy for no reason. Eclipse. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.